What if I told you one 19-year-old from Detroit stopped 500 enemy soldiers alone? In the jungles of Vietnam, Dwight "Skip" Johnson turned a broken tank, a .45 pistol, in pure fury into the most unbelievable one-man stand of the war. From dragging his brothers out of burning steel to ripping through waves of the enemy with a 50 calories, this is the story the history books can't even do justice. You won't believe how it ends. Monday, January 15th, 1968. In the jungles near Dak To, a 30-man American platoon was pinned down, staring down the barrels of a North Vietnamese battalion. More than 500 enemy soldiers, for M48 Patton tanks, roared in to pull them out. But it was an ambush in the waiting. Rockets screamed from the tree in. One Patton erupted in fire. Another was crippled. A third threw a tread, left dead in the kill zone. From the hatch climbed a lone tanker. He'd had enough. With a Colt 45, he charged into the jungle, dropping NBA one after another until the pistol ran dry. He snatched up a grease gun, cut men down at point-blank range, smashing it over a soldier's skull when the ammo was gone. From a burning tank, he dragged a wounded gunner to safety, climbed into another, fired its main gun, until it jammed. Then he hauled himself onto the turret and ripped that Maju's to life, cutting down wave after wave of the communist horde. This is the unbelievable true story of how one 19-year-old American tanker single-handedly repelled an entire battalion. Dwight, the Detroit destroyer Johnson, Vietnam, a powder keg. In January 1968, Vietnam was a powder keg ready to blow. The United States had nearly 500,000 troops in country, and for months, Chinese and Soviet-backed communist forces had been quietly massing across South Vietnam. The Central Highlands up near the Cambodian border had become a deadly crossroads of infiltration and ambush. The North Vietnamese army was on the move. Attacks were escalating by the day. Convoys were ambushed on the roads and fire bases, probed under the cover of darkness. No one knew it yet, but just 2 weeks later, all those simmering attacks would erupt into the Tet Offensive, the largest coordinated assault of the war. But on this day, long before Saigon and Hay City went up in flames, a smaller battle was about to unfold in the jungles near DTO. In the Central Highlands, an American platoon of around 40 men was already pinned down, taking heavy fire, outnumbered, and on the verge of being overrun by a battalion of over 500 North Vietnamese regulars. To break the ambush, U.S. tanks were ordered forward, and one young man from Detroit was about to prove that a single American's courage can stop an army in its tracks. Before the war, Skip Johnson. Music. I'm music. Before the ambush, before the Medal of Honor, there was just Dwight Johnson, known to friends and family simply as Skip. He was born on May 7th, 1947 in Detroit, Michigan, a kid from the Motor City who had no idea that one day his name would be etched into history. Skip grew up in the Jeffer projects, raised by his mother, Joyce, who carried the family alone after his father walked out. She was the rock of the household, the one who kept food on the table, clothes on her boys' backs, and their heads pointed in the right direction. Friends and neighbors remembered Skip as a gentle soul, a good boy, the kind who hated to fight. He served as an altar boy at church, wore the uniform of an explorer scout, and always carried himself with a quiet, respectful smile. He wasn't a tough kid, at least not in the way Detroit expected. Toughness, skinny with an infectious grin and a sense of humor that lit up every room. His mother recalled watching him come home, chased by bullies after school. One day he asked her, "Mama, what do I do if they catch me?" She told him simply, "Don't fight and don't let them catch you." That advice stuck. Skip wasn't the kind to swing back. He was the kind who laughed it off. Easygoing, bright, impossible to rattle. And as more than one friend remembered, damn near impossible to make angry. He was just another kid from the Motor City. Dreams no bigger than making it through the day. The ambush at Dak 2. Music. But when Uncle Sam came calling, everything changed. You might find during this big week that you're going to do a lot of things that is not pleasant to you. It is not meant to be pleasant to you. Combat is not going to be pleasant to you. And someday you men may have to face combat. And someday you're going to be in that situation where you're going to have this discipline. And when someone tells you to move, you got to move or you're dead. After basic training, Skip was sent to Fort Knox, where he learned to drive the M48 Patton tank, and then across the Pacific to a war in a place most Americans couldn't even find on a map. By early 1968, Specialist Dwight "Skip" Johnson had spent almost a year in Vietnam driving an M48 Patton with Company B, 1st Battalion, 69th Armor, 4th Infantry Division. The crews were close-knit, brothers bound by steel and sweat in the Central Highlands. On January 15th, Skip was just days away from heading home. That morning, he was tapped to replace another driver in a different tank. He didn't like leaving his crew, but orders were orders. The mission that day was urgent. A platoon had run into serious trouble. A reaction force was being sent to aid other elements of the platoon already in heavy contact with a battalionized North Vietnamese force. Skip's column rumbled down a narrow jungle road for tanks, heavy armor pushing toward the fight, near Dak Do along the Cambodian border, and the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Then hell opened up. Chinese anti-tank rockets screamed out of the Trian. A disciplined, battle-hardened NVA battalion unleashed everything they had. 2 tanks went down in the first volley. One was the tank Skip usually drove with his buddies inside. The other was the one he was behind the wheel of that very day. Skip's tank lurched to a halt, its tread blown off, immobilized. His friends in his regular tank were swallowed by fire as ammunition cooked off inside. Now Skip's platoon was in danger of being overrun. But while others ducked for cover, Skip climbed out of his hatch and into history. Music. The Medal of Honor action. RPGs cracked from the jungle. AKs hammered the road. Mortars rained down. The average mortal man would have stayed inside and prayed the armor held. And that's exactly what the surviving tank crews did. But Skip Johnson wasn't the average man. He threw open the hatch, climbed into the storm with only his M1911 in hand. Behind him, his gunner, Stan Enders, shouted, "Don't go." Skip never broke stride. He ignored the warning and ran straight into the fire. Through a wall of fire, he sprinted forward into the jungle. Round after round, he cut down North Vietnamese soldiers as he tore through the Trian, until the pistol slide locked back on an empty chamber. Skip fought his way through machine gun fire back to his disabled Patton. This time he grabbed a grease gun. Then he vaulted out again, charging headlong into the ambush. The jungle lit up as he raked bursts of automatic fire. Enemy soldiers fell in the mud at point-blank range. When the weapon finally ran dry, an NVA soldier leveled his AK straight at him. Skip swung the empty grease gun like a club and smashed him down with the buttstock. Now weaponless, he still didn't stop. 60 FT away, his old tank, the one he'd crewed with his buddies for nearly a year, was burning. Inside, they were trapped. Skip sprinted through the firestorm, climbed onto the burning turret, and ripped open the hatch. Inside was his buddy, horribly burned, but still alive. Under absolute withering machine gun, RPG, and mortar fire, Skip hauled the man out of the flames, carried him across the kill zone, and dropped him into the safety of an armored personnel carrier. Seconds later, the tank exploded, killing the rest of his crew. When he saw his buddies go up in smoke, the mild-mannered altar boy from Detroit, Skip Johnson, snapped. Fueled by rage and despair, he became even more unstoppable. Again, running through overwhelming fire, he jumped onto another disabled Patton and fired that 90mm cannon until it jammed. Not to be stopped, he sprinted back to his own crippled Patton. Its crew huddled inside. He gripped the twin handles of that MDU, stood fully exposed, and absolutely ripped the tree into shreds with a storm of 50 caliber Freedom seats. 4. 30 minutes, Dwight Skip Johnson held a battalion of battle-hardened NVA at bay. When reinforcements finally arrived, he was still so fired up it took 3 men and 3 doses of morphine to bring him down. Coming home, the day after the ambush, Skip Johnson was on a plane out of Vietnam. His year was up. He went home alive while so many of his brothers did not. But Skip didn't come home the same. In Detroit, he tried to pick up where life had left off. But the war wouldn't let go. He bounced from job to job, unable to keep steady work. Night after night, the ambush replayed. In his head, the tank exploding, his friends going up in smoke. He told people he should have been with them, that he didn't deserve to be alive when they weren't. The survivor's guilt ate at him. The easygoing altar boy from Detroit, once impossible to anger now, lived with a fire he couldn't put out. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3, 1863, has awarded in the name of the Congress the Medal of Honor to Specialist 5 Dwight H. Johnson, United States Army for his one-man stand at Dacto. Specialist Dwight Hal Johnson would be awarded the Medal of Honor on November 19, 1968, in the East Room of the White House. President Lyndon B. Johnson hung the Medal of Honor around Skip's neck. His applause. Mother, Joyce, and his fiancée, Katrina, stood proudly as the crowd applauded. But Skip couldn't celebrate. After the ceremony, he slipped into a hallway, broke down, and wept uncontrollably. His mother found him there, collapsed. Under the weight of it all, she held him close and whispered, "Honey, what are you crying about? You made it back." When Skip got back to the Motor City, the real celebration began. Detroit honored him with banquets, parades, even a downtown street renamed in his honor. The Army rainlisted him and made him a recruiter, hoping his story would inspire a new generation. But behind the uniform and the medal, Skip was still fighting a war no one else could see. The private war. On the outside, Dwight Johnson was a hero. On the inside, he was still in Vietnam. The Army polished his boots, pinned on the medal, and sent him out to smile for cameras. As a recruiter, he was paraded through Detroit as proof of courage. But Skip wasn't built for the spotlight. Every banquet, every school visit, every handshake meant telling the story again, reliving the firefight, reopening the wound. At night, the war came roaring back. He saw his tank erupting in flames, heard his buddies screaming, felt the concussions of mortars all over again. He drank hard to push it away. He was hospitalized for bleeding ulcers. Doctors called it post-Vietnam adjustment problems. Today we know it as PTSD. Skip went a wall more than once. His marriage strained. Bills stacked up. His house slipped toward foreclosure. Katrina grew ill, and the Medal of Honor hero sank deeper into despair. On April 30th, 1971, the war finally claimed him. After visiting his wife in the hospital, he stopped at a bar and drank himself into oblivion. Later that night, Skip walked into a Detroit liquor store with a .22 caliber pistol in his hand and pointed it at the clerk, who fired 4 rounds directly into Skip's chest. Within hours, he was gone, just 24 years old. His mother, Joyce, later said, "Sometimes I wonder if Skip was tired of this life and needed someone else to pull the trigger." 16:27 a.m. Great American from Detroit. In the years after his death, the Veterans Administration ruled Johnson incompetent at the time of the shooting, ensuring his widow and son would receive benefits. His story of valor and torment lived on. It inspired poetry, nonfiction, even film and theater, including Tom Cole's award-winning play, Medal of Honor Rag. Today, Dwight Johnson rests in Arlington National Cemetery, just a few dozen yards from President Kennedy's eternal flame overlooking the Toac River. A quiet kid from Detroit, a tanker, a Medal of Honor recipient, remembered forever simply as a great American. If you made it this far, thank you. My mission is simple: to preserve and share the stories of American warriors like Dwight Skip Johnson, a quiet kid from Detroit's projects who became a Medal of Honor recipient, and above all, a great American from the Motor City. These aren't just war stories. They're legacies. But legacies only live if we tell them. And in today's world, the algorithm doesn't always reward grit, sacrifice, and truth. So if you believe Skip Johnson's name should never fade, if you believe the world needs to know the price he paid, then please share this story. Hit that like button, drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Because every click, every share, every comment keeps his memory alive. And if you want to help preserve the legacies of more great Americans, badass heroes like Skip Johnson, subscribe to this channel. Together, we'll make sure their names are never forgotten.